The 2025 NASCAR season marked a lot of changes for the sport, and the biggest one being the new broadcasting deal. With it, we now have 6 partners that broadcast NASCAR races in the top 3 series, up from 2. So, let's go through and rank each one of them from 6th to 1st. In last and 6th, it is FS1 with their truck broadcasts. Outside of the pit reporters, which I actually think do a really good job every week, there's really not many redeeming qualities that can be said about FS1's truck coverage. The production is half the time passable, and it's on the lower end of passable. Half the time, they don't even show up to the racetrack with the booth and a lot of people, and it's clear because, well, they're in a studio with TVs behind them. Even when they're maybe 2 or 3 hours down the road from a racetrack, they can't be bothered to bring their talent to said racetrack. FS1 basically uses the truck series as paid programming on their network. The same way you'd see a local channel put up some random infomercial for 2 hours, they just shuffle off to anything else that they can cover, even if it's a bunch of pre-recorded shows that have a bunch of outdated storylines about stick and ball sports from that day. And at this point, they've killed all pre-race. The post-race show is basically just thanks to our sponsors, bye. And the booth, too. The booth is terrible right now. Michael Waltrip is, at best, kind of inept up there. He doesn't seem to have any awareness of what's going on. And at worst, he can just completely shill whatever NASCAR wants him to on that. Other drivers that jump up there, like Regan Smith, a former driver, or Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, you name it, they're kind of just like dry, stale bread, and it's not really their fault. It's because there's no leadership up in the booth that can at least rein them in a little bit. Because Jamie Little is just not cut out to be a lead commentator. She's one of the best pit reporters of the last 25 years in NASCAR, but she just cannot call a finish to save her life. Now in 5th is Fox's Cup broadcasts. And this sucks because while it is definitely better than the truck one, I remember when Fox used to be really, really good. Mike Joyce still holds decent authority in the booth. And it definitely feels like he's stepped up his game in recent years after kind of phoning it in for a few years in the middle there. The booth in general, though, needs a shakeup. Joy is definitely at the sunset of his career, and I wouldn't be surprised at any year that he retires at whatever one it is. Harvick and Bowyer, they have their moments. Again, Harvick knows what he's talking about. Bowyer can have good energy when reined in, but they do not have good on-air chemistry. Most of the time, it just feels like Kevin Harvick is bullying Clint Bowyer. The pit reporters, again, really good. I think all of them do a great job, and I don't want anything changed there. Production has been atrocious, though. And a lot of the times, it seems like they, and then, of course, the booth having to watch the screen, don't know what's going on. And we've seen that, like the finish at Bristol. In 4th is TNT. Many had excitement for the return of TNT because of their member berries, as well as the in-season tournament. And, well, it was just mid. The first 2 or 3 races definitely had tons of production issues, audio issues, and other problems, but it wasn't like it was Fox bad. It just was sort of underwhelming, Chicago being the worst of them. And by the time they kind of got it figured out, they were done. I wish I had more to say about them, but there's just nothing there. They definitely can go up next year, though, that's for sure. In 3rd, and I don't know if this is going to be a hot take, but I'm going to say NBC. In my opinion, NBC took a really big step back this year, and they took a small step back last year, too. There was a smaller at-track crew, and they definitely missed things when it came to replays, crashes, and different moments at a level that was rivaling Fox by the end of the year. I think the booth as a trio was better, though, this year than they were last year. I like Lee Diffie, and I'll defend him, even though I do think at the finale he did not call the race as well as he's called others. Jeff Burton has become tolerable most of the time. It seems like they kind of reined him back a little bit, and Steve Letarte does have knowledge of what's going on. He is far enough removed from the car that he might not have as much vested interest in certain drivers, cars, and teams, but he's close enough that he still knows what he's talking about. The word playoffs, though, during the end of this part of the season here, it is just said way too damn much. If you had a drinking game for it, you would die. You would. When you watch those playoff races, you'd think that the cars that are in them are the only ones on the racetrack. It is hard to watch if you're a fan of literally any other driver in the field or any driver that's been eliminated in previous rounds, as you basically have to win to be noticed. And even that didn't help Ryan Blaney on Sunday. Most people didn't know until after the race that he had won it, and nobody had saw his burnout on air. Plus, you left a lot of stuff on USA, and you left early on Sunday. We didn't even get to see the trophy presentation for our champion for the first time ever. I also do think that energy-wise, they are severely missing the presence of Dale Earnhardt Jr. So in second, I'll give our first newcomer of the year their spot, and that's the CW. Now, this was entirely produced and made by NASCAR Productions. This was not the CW basically doing anything other than broadcasting it, and I did think they were generally good in a lot of aspects. I don't think they were great in just about any of them, but I think they were a jack of all trades, master of none. I did think the booth with Adam Alexander, Parker Kligerman, and Jamie McMurray did have a lot of energy and chemistry. I was really kind of apprehensive about how McMurray would do, but I thought he did great. I do know that they stumbled over their words a lot of times, or maybe talked over each other, yelled, peaked mics, whatever, but that's stuff that can get ironed out over time. And in a first year, I'm not going to go in too hard on that. Generally, I think they put a lot of effort, the CW that is, though, into pumping up the Xfinity Series. There were commercials on their other broadcasts for sports on that channel, on other channels, and it was clear that it was a big deal. I think the biggest issue that the CW faces, one, is they just don't have the money and the market share that others have that are against them, and two, they need to get their affiliates all together and on the same page. There is no excuse for why markets like Detroit did not have any coverage of races for most of the year. And there's just no excuse for why it's not on the app at this point, like promised at the start of the deal. The CW needs to fix this if they're going to have a real push in the sports market against Fox, ABC, CBS, and NBC long term. Also, they need to have all three in the booth, not just for big races, and they need to be at the track more. And at number one, it's no surprise, it is Prime. In my opinion, Prime set the new gold standard. The gold standard before was the early 2000s Fox era, in my opinion. I think they just hit everything out of the park for the most part, and the nitpicks back then were just that. And I think it's the same way now with Prime. I think the quality of these broadcasts were above anything we have ever been shown as NASCAR fans. And it's what we've deserved after seeing some of the slop that Fox Sports and others have put out in recent years in contracts. They had an expanded pre- and post-race show as well. They had new tools that really helped us understand the race better, like the burn bar. And there was a lot of lack of full screen and total commercials taking up the broadcast. It was clear they didn't have to work under the same rules as TV, and they took full advantage of that as being one of their best traits. The energy of the broadcast was up as well. You could tell this is a big deal for everybody involved. Every race felt big on Prime. Like any of those five could be the biggest one of the year. And it was very similar to the feel that I got watching back in the early 2000s, that every race was a big deal and we don't take any for granted. And I think a lot of people in the sport need to take note of that, because for Prime, they didn't have that early season push after the Daytona 500. They didn't have the in-season tournament. They didn't have the playoffs. They had to rely on how well they could cover the sport, and they knocked it out of the park. I know a lot of people were upset on the older side because of it being a streaming service. Others didn't like it because evil Emperor Bezos got money. But to me, I can live with any of that, knowing that my sport got covered very well. The on-air talent, too. Maybe it wasn't the most polished at times, but was younger. It wasn't like I was watching a retirement home broadcast a race, or watching guys I've heard all the time on broadcast for the last 10 to 15 years. The big problems are really nitpicks for now. They might need to not have CCR playing every time they come back from commercial. Maybe streamline the post-race a little better. It's okay if it lasts 30 minutes if you get all the information in rather than 15 minutes of fluff. And I will let you know that I did go back and watch the post-race after my post-race streams. And I will also say maybe a better ticker for the starting grid and during the race. But those things can be ironed out, and I'm completely sure that they've seen those kind of complaints and nitpicks. So to me, I love it. I can't wait for the 600 next year, not just for the great racing, but for the great broadcast. So there you have it. what would you rate the 6 TV providers from best to worst, worst to best, you name it? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. And thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. Until next time, have a good one.